down here in South Texas, Cameron County. We're part of a joint task force between USDA and Texas Animal Health Commission. We're down there chasing fever ticks.
Babesiosis is the whole reason we're concerned about the fever tick. It's a disease that they can carry and transmit to cattle.
They're already out of the permanent quarantine zone, and now they're in the temporary zone. If they continue to move, it can be very detrimental to not just the livestock industry in Texas, but the livestock industry nationally.
This is a female.
The cattle down here in South Texas may get exposed from time to time from incursions from Mexico.
We want to get rid of them. It's going to be a lengthy process. It's not something that's going to happen in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months. It's going to be a lengthy process. Ultimate goal is to get the ticks back in the permanent zone.
Looking at our history, back in the 1800s, they had death losses up to 90% in those cattle herds, which is why we got our start. They put an embargo on Texas cattle because they were a threat to theirs.
And that's what got the Animal Health Commission its start, was the little thing called the fever tick. And here we are all these years later, still fighting.
That was the whole reason for starting the cattle fever tick eradication program in an effort to push it back to Mexico so that other states would have faith that we have a safe supply of cattle here.
We're looking for the fever tick. Within the blanket zone, we're responsible for having our hands on every head of that livestock to get them scratched. We're scratching from head to toe, dipped if necessary, and take care of all those animals. That's a big task. They're implementing a thing called a 14-day pass. We have stations set up, and that's for movement restriction. And if horses need to be moved, they can't do so without restriction, and they need to be sprayed out before they can actually leave the area. And then they need to be sprayed on that 14-day pass. So we have to have people available to do that at all times, to be available, those producers, so they can move when they need to move. What we're doing in the surveillance zone, in the blanket zone, we're going door to door. We're trying to identify every animal, every equine, and every head of cattle in those zones. How old is he? You can pull up, do an inspection, and go ahead and scratch the horse right there. And if they don't have anything, no ticks at all on any of these horses. We consider that a done deal. Put it in the map, put it on the chart, it's done, and you can move on. That's what we're looking to do, just prove what's not there too, not just necessarily what is. One of the most important things that people need to know about this is it's not a human health risk. We're strictly worried about the livestock industry. It really is ultimately for the good of the whole state of Texas and all its producers, and also the national scene.
The horse responder team idea came to me as a result of what happened with Hurricane Ike, where there were so many displaced animals. We realized that the state of Texas had no infrastructure in place to help the local communities catch their animals, identify their animals, take them to shelters. When I looked around at the Animal Health Commission, what we had were cowboys, and we had the desire and the ability to go on short notice and catch animals and help people get their livestock returned to them as easily as possible.
We have deployed our horse response team to come down here to Zapata. To get a good estimate and idea of what it's going to take for our responders to come this far. And that's why this exercise is for us to see how they can get down here, how long it takes them to get down here, and what they need to have when they get down here. All volunteered to do this. They have, the passion to be able to go out and help people.
They also are skilled at mapping, and they're skilled at communications and working with the local responders.
So everybody on our team are very experienced and knowledgeable when it comes to horses, comes to cattle, ranching.
have a resource that truthfully most other states cannot provide to their citizens. And that's why I think it's important that we be available to help. If a hurricane were to hit Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, or even Florida, we'd be willing to go help them.
When there's a disaster, help get the cattle back up or strays, or even go look for somebody.
This isn't a team that will only respond horseback. They're part of the Animal Health Commission's service to the state of Texas, and the horses are one of their tools in their toolbox.
Each year we learn more, the needs of our people, the needs of, what the responders will need as far as their horses, equipment.
Our horse team is the only one in the United States, and Texas Animal Health Commission is the largest animal health agency in the United States.
It's a real honor to be doing this for the Texas Animal Health Commission and the state of Texas.
We have horses and cowboys, and it is what we do. We're the Animal Health Commission. We are Texas.
We're on U.S. Fish and Wildlife National Refuge land conducting a nilgai harvest in conjunction with Fish and Wildlife as well as the United States Department of Agriculture Cattle Fever Tick Eradication Program.
This unit here, we have this road that goes all the way around where we're at. I've been working at Laguna Atascosa for a little over 4 years now, and I personally feel through surveys and personal observation as well as harvest data that our nilgai population has been steadily increasing over the past few years.
For us, since our priority is the safety and health of livestock in Texas, they pose a problem for us in spreading the cattle fever tick. For the ranchers involved, the cost of a fever tick quarantine is not worth the benefit that they get from having nilgai on their property. So it's a problem for them because it's keeping their cattle infested with fever ticks.
There's a tick attached there, see it?
They create many concerns for us, such as habitat destruction, competition with native wildlife, and more importantly, we have a human health and safety issue with them possibly getting onto roads and animal vehicle collisions.
They're a host. Just like cattle, they're a suitable and fairly efficient host for the fever tick. Some animals are not, but nilgai are. So babesiosis is the whole reason we're concerned about the fever tick. It's a disease that they can carry and transmit to cattle. If the tick with babesiosis were to make its way into cattle populations that were naive to the north of us, looking at our history, back in the 1800s, they had death losses up to 90% in those cattle herds, which is why we got our start. They put an embargo on Texas cattle because they were a threat to theirs, and so that was the whole reason for starting the cattle fever tick eradication program in an effort to push it back to Mexico so that other states would have faith that we have a supply of cattle here.
So at Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge, we have an annual public hunt program which allows archers and firearm hunters to come into the refuge, and they get to harvest not only white-tailed deer but feral hogs and nilgai as well. While the harvest has been increasing the past few years up to nearly 30 individuals last year, we do not feel that that harvest is sufficient for keeping the nilgai population in check and or decreasing the population.
Look in the soft tissue first. How's it going? And we're picking some ticks off here.
We are inspecting the animals for fever ticks and collecting samples. We're collecting ear notches for DNA samples that are being archived for future research on them, as well as blood samples to see if they're carrying some of the diseases of concern that we worry that they may be carrying.
That's the female, and there's a male right on top of it.
Within the refuge, our biggest issue with controlling the population is just our inability to do so currently. As I stated with the public hunts, that's currently our only way of managing and trying to control the nilgai.
Thinning the population in this area and at the same time gaining what valuable data we can from them is going to go a long way to help controlling the current outbreak. In the end, you just have to weigh the the benefits of having an unchecked population of nilgai roaming free against the risks and the cost. And for the average person at home that may think, well, this doesn't affect me, if they're allowed to spread cattle fever ticks with absolutely no control, and trade restrictions end up getting applied to Texas cattle, the average person in the public would also feel it when they go to the grocery store to buy meat or to a restaurant to eat a steak, because it's going to result in higher prices.
It's very important for us to be prepared all the time.
Our horse team is the first in the United States.
We have to stay prepared as an agency.
The team is part of a bigger concept of Animal Health Commission response capabilities.
We are able to deploy 600 miles away.
Horses are one of their tools in their toolbox.
We are equipped and ready to go at a moment's notice.